Hi, good day to you all. Right now I am at the entrance of the Sinharaja Rainforest entrance. Today we are going to have a photographic expedition in Sinharaja Rainforest Reserve. Our target is to photograph the maximum number of endemic species here. This tour is leading by one of the best tour leaders in Sri Lanka, Mr. Chinthaka de Silva. As per the weather forecast, it can rain heavily to Sinharaja. But we are ready to take that challenge and move forward. Stay tuned with me. I am Prasad Hipuarachi. Sinharaja Forest Reserve is a forest reserve and a biodiversity hotspot in Sri Lanka. It is of international significance and has been designated a Biosphere Reserve and World Heritage Site by UNESCO. According to International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, Sinharaja is the country's last viable area of primary tropical rainforest. More than 60% of the trees are endemic and many of them are considered rare. 50% of Sri Lankan's endemic species of animals, especially butterfly, amphibians, birds, snakes and fish species. It is home to 95% endemic birds. The hilly virgin rainforest, part of the Sri Lanka lowland rainforest's ecoregion, was saved from the worst of commercial logging by its inaccessibility, and was designated a World Biosphere Reserve in 1978 and a World Heritage Site in 1988. Because of the dense vegetation, wildlife is not as easily seen as at dry zone national parks such as Yala. There are about 3 elephants and 15 or so leopards. The most common larger mammal is the endemic purple-faced langur. Birds tend to move in mixed feeding flocks, invariably led by the fearless Sri Lanka crested drongo and the noisy orange-billed babbler. Out of Sri Lanka's 34 endemic birds, the 90% species occur here, including the elusive red-faced malkoa, green-billed kukul and Sri Lanka blue magpie. Reptiles include the endemic green pit viper and hump-nosed vipers, and there are a large variety of amphibians, especially tree frogs. Invertebrates include the endemic common birdwing butterfly and leeches. You should know about the outstanding universal value of Sinharaja. Encompassing the last extensive patch of primary lowland rainforest in Sri Lanka, Sinharaja Forest Reserve is situated in the southwest lowland wet zone of Sri Lanka. Covering an area of 8,864 hectares and ranging from an altitude of 300 to 1,170 meters, it consists of 6,092 hectares of forest reserve and 2,772 hectares of proposed forest reserve. This narrow strip of undulating terrain encompasses a series of ridges and valleys that are crisscrossed by an intricate network of streams. Draining to both the south and north, this detailed matrix of waterways flow into the Jin River on the southern boundary of the property and Kalu River via the Napal Adola, Koskalana Ganga and Kudawa Ganga on its northern boundary. Annual rainfall over the last 60 years has ranged from 3,614 to 5,006 mm, with most of the precipitation during the southwest monsoon, May to July, and the northeast monsoon, November to January. Sri Lanka is home to 830 endemic species, of which 217 trees and woody climbers are found in the lowland wet zone. Of these, 139, 64%, have been recorded in the reserve, including 16 rare species. Faunal endemism is particularly high for birds, with 19, 95%, of 20 species recorded in the property being endemic to Sri Lanka. Endemism among mammals and butterflies is also greater than 50%. A number of threatened, endangered and rare species occur within the reserve, including leopard, Panthera pardus, Indian elephant, Elephas maximus, endemic purple-faced langur, Presbytis senex, Sri Lanka wood pigeon, Columba torringtoni, green-billed kukul, Centropus chlororhynchus, Sri Lanka white-faced starling, Sturnus senex, Sri Lanka blue magpie, Sissa ornate, ashy-headed laughing thrush, Garrulax cinereifrons, and Sri Lanka broad-billed roller, Eurystomus orientalis irisi. Sinharaja is the last remaining relatively undisturbed remnant of tropical humid evergreen forest in Sri Lanka. The property's flora is a relic of Gondwanaland and provides an important component to our scientific understanding of continental drift and an outstanding site for the study of the processes of biological evolution. A geological feature of considerable interest is the presence of the Sinharaja Basic Zone, with the reserve located within the transition zone of two important rock types characteristic of Sri Lanka: the southwestern group and the highland group. Endemism within the property is extremely high. Protecting the last viable remnant of Sri Lanka's tropical lowland rainforest, Sinharaja is home to at least 139 endemic plant species within two main types of forest: remnants of Dipterocarpus in the valleys and on the lower slopes, and secondary forest and scrub where the original forest cover has been removed. 16 of the endemic plant species within the property are considered rare, including endemic palms Loxococcus rupicola and Atalantia rotundifolia. Faunal endemism is also high, particularly for mammals, birds and butterflies, exceeding 50%. 95% of Sri Lanka's endemic birds are present in the property, which is also home to leopard and Indian elephant, both of which are threatened species. Sinharaja Forest Reserve forms a sufficiently large conservation unit for the in situ conservation of rare and endangered species while sustaining the ongoing biological evolutionary processes for which it was inscribed. Surrounded by 13 other adjacent natural forest areas that provide an added layer of protection to the property, the boundaries, however, require further definition and demarcation. Efforts are also being made by the management agency to further enhance the conservation status of the reserve through regulation of land uses occurring in the area surrounding the property, which hopes to further reduce the impact of intensive land use on the values of Sinharaja. Illicit timber felling, gemming and poaching continue to be of concern with regards to the impacts on the values and integrity of the property, but the high level of public support for nature conservation and the large number of government bodies involved in regulation and proposal approval results in strong opposition to resource exploitation proposals. Noted as a National Heritage Wilderness Area on October 21, 1988, the majority of the area within the property was originally declared a forest reserve on May 3, 1875, providing a long history of protection. The property is afforded the highest level of legal protection under the National Heritage and Wilderness Area Act of Sri Lanka, and almost all the peripheral natural forests along the boundary have already been declared as conservation forests or reserved forests under the Forest Ordinance. The values encompassed by the property were further recognized when it was declared a Biosphere Reserve in April 1978 and subsequently inscribed on the World Heritage. Sinharaja World Heritage property is managed directly by the Divisional Forest Officer from the Forest Department, under the authority of the Ministry of Lands and Land Development. A national steering committee coordinates the institutions for Sinharaja as a National Wilderness Area, Biosphere Reserve and World Heritage Site. Management practices and research are executed in accordance with the prescriptions of the respective management plans, prepared for the Sinharaja Conservation Area as well as the property's peripheral natural forests, under the National Forest Policy Directives. The management plans for the property, prepared in 1985-86 and 1992-94, emphasize conservation, scientific research, buffer zone management, benefit sharing, and community participation. Sinharaja is provided with the highest level of legal protection under the National Heritage Wilderness Area Act, and a high level of environmental awareness of the local community is extremely helpful in implementing management plan prescriptions. Forest dependency of local communities is very low, and maintaining this healthy partnership with local communities is the main strategy to ensure future protection of this property. Historically protected as a result of its inaccessibility and steep, hilly terrain, the Forest Department prioritizes protection of the reserve over development pressures and resource extraction. Visitor numbers remain low with entry by permit only. Threats to the values and integrity of the property primarily come from encroaching cultivation, particularly along the southern boundary. Development undertaken outside the property indirectly impacts the site through road developments which subsequently open up routes and entry points into the property, facilitating illegal logging and removal of resources, with illegal gem mining also posing a threat. The traditional use of forest products is now restricted to areas outside the boundaries. Low staffing levels hinder the policing of offenses, and a lack of funding is a barrier to the effective, long-term management of the area. The management agency, the Sri Lankan Forestry Department, has designated the management of Sinharaja a high priority, allocating funds according to the priorities spelled out in the management plan and ongoing management programs. Photographing birds inside Sinharaja is very challengeable. Because of the dense vegetation, wildlife is not as easily seen as at dry zone national parks such as Yala, Wilpattu, Udawala. But with the proper knowledge of birds' habitat, you can take good photographs. But your dedication is well worthy, since you have to walk inside the forest carrying your camera gear. And since it's a rainforest, you need be prepared for the sudden rains. Having a wet gear is a must, and if you do not have rain covers, make sure to take some garbage bags to protect your camera gear from rain. The most difficult bird to photograph is the beautiful red-faced malkoa. Since it is a canopy bird, it always perches on the highest canopies in the forest. So having a longer focal length lens is a good advantage. And green-bill kukul is also not that easy. But if you really into birding and bird photography, and if you know their calls and sounds, you can spot them to take a photograph. But again, it's very challengeable. Sri Lanka blue magpie, yellow-browed bulbul, black bulbul, Sri Lanka spurfowl can be easily see if you stay at Martin's Lodge. Or else you need to hire a jeep to Ketalapathala, a nearby village at the edge of Sinharaja, to see spurfowl. Serendib scops owl, Otis thilo hoffmanni, is another challenging bird to photograph. You need to get help from the tour leaders to spot it. Few villagers who are aware of the habitat of these birds knows where they day roost. And with their help you can see and take photograph. But you need to pay at least 5,000 rupees for them to take you to where the bird is. The below endemic birds can be photographed in Sinharaja Forest when you enter from Wettagala. 1. Ashy-headed laughing thrush, Argyas cinereifrons. The ashy-headed laughing thrush, Argyas cinereifrons, is a member of the family Lyothrichidae. The laughing thrushes are a large family of Old World passerine birds characterized by soft fluffy plumage. These are birds of tropical areas, with the greatest variety in Southeast Asia. The ashy-headed laughing thrush is a rangy bird, 23 centimeters, 9 inches, in length, with a long floppy tail. It is rufous brown above and deep buff below, with a gray head and white throat. Like other babblers, these are noisy birds, and the characteristic laughing calls are often the best indication that they are present, since they are often difficult to see in their preferred habitat. 2. Black-capped bulbul, Pycnonotus melanicterus. The black-capped bulbul, Rubigula melanicterus, or black-headed yellow bulbul, is a member of the bulbul family of passerine birds. It is endemic to Sri Lanka. The black-capped bulbul is virtually crestless and has a yellow throat and brownish eyes. It is yellowish-green above and yellow below. The tail is brownish and ends in a white tip. The male has red irides and female has brown irides. Calls include a broad repertoire of sweet, mellow, minor key piping whistles and sharper calls. Breeding records are from March to September. 3. Black-rumped flameback, Dinopium serodes. It has been considered an endemic species since the time of Leg. It was first placed in the genus Brachypteronus as Brachypteronus solanus. It was later lumped as subspecies of the black-rumped flameback, Dinopium bengalense, as Dinopium bengalense serodes. In this study, it was found to hybridize with the black-rumped flameback. The hybridization is concentrated north of a border from Trincomalee to the base of Puttalam Lagoon and south of a border from Mullaitivu to Mannar. Hybridization is less out of this border, where the black-rumped flameback dominates north of the border while the red-backed flameback dominates south of the border. It is a case of hybrid inferiority, in which the pure species are more successful than the hybrids. It is one of the 3 species of red-colored flamebacks which are found only in Sri Lanka and the Philippines. It is also the only red-colored Dinopium species. The other red flamebacks are the crimson-backed flameback, Chrysocolaptes stricklandi, of Sri Lanka, and the Luzon flameback, Chrysocolaptes hematribon, of the Philippines, except for the yellow-faced flameback, Chrysocolaptes xanthocephalus, but it is mostly yellow. This analogous trait, a trait shared by 2 organisms by convergent evolution, which means that they evolved to be similar independently because of similar evolutionary pressures, suggests that some evolutionary pressure in Sri Lanka and the Philippines caused their endemic flamebacks to become red. No subspecies are recognized. 4. Crimson-backed flameback, Criocolaptes stricklandii. The crimson-backed flameback or Greater Sri Lanka flameback, Chrysocolaptes stricklandii, is a species of bird in the woodpecker family Picidae that is endemic to Sri Lanka. The crimson-backed flameback and the greater flameback, Chrysocolaptes gutticristatus, were both formerly considered as subspecies of the buff-spotted flameback, Chrysocolaptes lucidus. 5. Ceylon rufous babbler, Turdoidon rufescens. The orange-billed babbler, Argia rufescens, also known as Ceylon rufous babbler or Sri Lankan rufous babbler, is a member of the family Lyothrichidae. The orange-billed babbler is a resident breeding bird endemic to Sri Lanka. In the past, it was considered to be a race of jungle babbler, Argia striatus. Its habitat is rainforest, and it is seldom seen away from deep jungle. This species, like most babblers, is not migratory, and has short rounded wings and a weak flight. Although its habitat is under threat, it occurs in all the forests of the wet zone, and is quite common at prime sites like Kitulgala and Sinharaja. It builds its nest in a tree, concealed in dense masses of foliage. The normal clutch is 2 or 3 deep greenish-blue eggs. These birds are plain orange-brown below, and have a slightly darker shade above. The crown and nape are gray, and the bill is orange. The orange-billed babbler lives in flocks of 7 to 10 or more. It is a noisy bird, and the presence of a flock may generally be known at some distance by the continual chattering, squeaking and chirping produced by its members. It is usually the first sign that a mixed species feeding flock, so characteristic of Asian wet forests, is in the vicinity. It feeds mainly on insects, but also eats jungle berries. 6. Sri Lanka spurfowl, Gallipertix bicalcarata. The Sri Lanka spurfowl, Gallipertix bicalcarata, is a member of the pheasant family which is endemic to the dense rainforests of Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, this bird is known as Haban kakula in Sinhala. It is a very secretive bird, and despite its size is difficult to see as it slips through dense undergrowth. Often the only indication of its presence is its distinctive ringing call, consisting of series of 3-syllabled whistles. Kitulgala and Sinharaja are sites where there is a chance of seeing this bird. This spurfowl is one of 3 species of bird in the genus Gallipertix. It is a ground nesting bird, which lays 2 to 5 eggs in a scrape. Sri Lanka spurfowl is approximately 37 centimeters long bird. Both sexes have brown upperparts, wings and tail. The males exhibit vivid crimson-red legs and bare facial skin and striking black and white dorsal plumage that extends to its head. There is also extensive white oscillation on the sepia wings and upper back. The legs of both sexes have multiple metatarsal spurs, which give rise to the specific name. The female has chestnut underparts and a plain brown back and wings. She is more prominently crested than the male. Sri Lanka spurfowl is a seasonally terrestrial species, like most of its near relatives. It scratches vigorously amongst the leaf litter of the forest floor for invertebrates, especially mollusks and insects. It will also take various seeds, fallen fruit and spiders. 7. Sri Lanka junglefowl, Gallus lafayette. The Sri Lankan junglefowl, Gallus lafayette, sometimes spelled Gallus lafayette, also known as the Ceylon junglefowl or Lafayette's junglefowl, is a member of the Galliformes bird order which is endemic to Sri Lanka, where it is the national bird. It is closely related to the red junglefowl, G. Gallus, the wild junglefowl from which the chicken was domesticated. However, a whole genome molecular study rather showed that Sri Lankan junglefowl and grey junglefowl are genetically sister species than with the red junglefowl. Sri Lankan junglefowl and red junglefowl diverged about 2.8 million years ago, whereas time of divergence between the Sri Lankan junglefowl and grey junglefowl was 1.8 million years ago. Evidence of introgressive hybridization from Sri Lanka junglefowl has also been established in domestic chicken. The specific name of the Sri Lankan junglefowl commemorates the French aristocrat Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de Lafayette. 8. Crested drongo, Dicrurus paradisus lafarinus. The Sri Lanka drongo, Dicrurus lafarinus, or Ceylon crested drongo, is a species of bird in the family Dicruridae. It is endemic to Sri Lanka. It was previously considered a subspecies of the greater racket-tailed drongo. Its natural habitats are subtropical or tropical moist lowland and montane forests. 9. Sri Lanka wood pigeon, Columba torringtoni. The Sri Lanka wood pigeon, Columba torringtonii, is a pigeon which is an endemic resident breeding bird in the mountains of Sri Lanka. This species nests in damp evergreen woodlands in the Central Highlands, building a stick nest in a tree and laying a single white egg. Its flight is quick, with the regular beats and an occasional sharp flick of the wings which are characteristic of pigeons in general. Most of its food is vegetable. Normally silent, it utters an owl-like hoo call in the breeding season. The Sri Lanka wood pigeon is 36 centimeters in length. Its upper parts and tail are dark gray, and the head and underparts are lilac, becoming paler on the belly. There is a black and white chessboard pattern on the nape. This pigeon can be quite easily seen in the woods of the Horton Plains National Park. 10. Sri Lanka hanging parrot, Loriculus beryllinus. The Sri Lanka hanging parrot is a small, mainly green hanging parrot, only 13 centimeters long with a short tail. The adult has a red crown and rump. The nape and back have an orange tint. The chin and throat are pale blue. The beak is red and the irises are white. Immature birds lack the orange hue to the back, have a duller rump, and have only a hint of orange on the crown. They have a faint blue throat. They have orange beaks and brown irises. 11. Layard's parakeet, Psittacula calthrapi. Layard's parakeet, Psittacula calthrapi, is a parrot which is a resident endemic breeder in Sri Lanka. The common name of this bird commemorates the British naturalist Edgar Leopold Layard. His first wife, Barbara Ann Calthrop, whom he married in 1845, is commemorated in the specific epithet. Layard's parakeet is a green parrot, 29 centimeters long including a tail up to 13 centimeters. The adult has a bluish-gray head and back, separated by a green collar. There is a broad black chin stripe and the tail is blue-tipped yellow. The upper mandible of the male's bill is red and the lower mandible is brown. The female is similar, but has an all-black beak and less green on the face than the male. Immature birds are mainly green, with an orange bill. 12. Red-faced malkoa, Phoenicophaeus pyrocephalus. The red-faced malkoa, Phoenicophaeus pyrocephalus, is a member of the cuckoo order of birds, the cuculiformes. This is a large species at 46 centimeters with a long graduated tail. Its back is dark green, and the upper tail is green edged with white. The belly and undertail are white, the latter being barred black. The crown and throat are black, and the lower face white. There is a large red patch around the eye and the bill is green. Sexes are similar, but juveniles are much duller. The red-faced malkoa takes a variety of insects including caterpillars, giant stick insects, mantises and small vertebrates such as lizard. It occasionally may eat berries but this needs confirmation. Unlike most cuckoos, this is a quiet species, making only the odd soft grunt. 13. Green-billed cuckoo, Centropus chlororhynchus. The green-billed cuckoo, Centropus chlororhynchus, is a member of the cuckoos. It is endemic to Sri Lanka's wet zone and listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. As the small population declined due to forest destruction and fragmentation, it inhabits the tall rainforests of southwest Sri Lanka and nests in bushes. Its typical clutch is 2 to 3 eggs. 14. Sri Lanka's Serendib scops owl, Otis thilo hoffmanni. The Serendib scops owl, Otis thilo hoffmanni, is the first new bird to be discovered in Sri Lanka since 1868, when the Sri Lanka whistling thrush, then Ceylon whistling thrush, Myophonus bliggi, was discovered. It is also the 24th, according to some authorities the 27th, endemic bird species for Sri Lanka. The habitat of the Serendib scops owl is in the southern rainforests of Sri Lanka. There is an altitudinal range from 30 to 50 meters. This owl has no competition from other nocturnal birds. The territories are completely different. This species has a very small population. At the end of January 2006, only 80 of them were known to exist. The places that it is expected to be found are in 5 protected areas, like the forest reserve or the proposed reserve by Sri Lanka. They seem to be declining because of the loss of habitat and the degradation. The first 2 hours of darkness is when the owl hunts for its food. This rare species inhabits the rainforests in the southwestern part of Sri Lanka. Like most owls, it is strictly nocturnal and hunts insects, e.g. beetles and moths, close to the ground. It begins calling at dusk, its frequency rising again some 2 hours before dawn. Unlike the other 2 species of scops owl in Sri Lanka, Indian scops owl, Otis bacamoina, and oriental scops owl, Otis sunia. It does not have ear tufts and its facial disc is only weakly defined. The general color of this 16.5 cm long, short-tailed owl is reddish-brown with paler underparts, spotted all over with fine black markings. The irides are tawny yellow, more orangish in male, and the feet are a pale fleshy color. Tarsi are feathered for less than half their length. The claws and bill are a pale ivory color. 15. Sri Lanka chestnut-backed owlet, Glossidium castanotum. The chestnut-backed owlet, Glossidium castanotum, often misspelled Glossidium castaninotum, is an owl which is endemic to Sri Lanka. This species is a part of the larger grouping of owls known as typical owls, Strigidae, which contains most of the smaller owl species. This species was formerly considered to be a subspecies of the jungle owlet. 16. Sri Lanka grey hornbill, Oceceros gingalensis. The Sri Lanka grey hornbill, Oceceros gingalensis, is a bird in the hornbill family and a widespread and common endemic resident breeder in Sri Lanka. Hornbills are a family of tropical near passerine birds found in the Old World. The Sri Lanka grey hornbill is a large bird at 45 cm, 18 in length. It has grey wings with black primary flight feathers, a grey back, and a brown crown. Its long tail is blackish with white sides, and the underparts are white. The long, curved bill has no casque. Sexes are similar, although the male has a cream-colored bill, whereas the female's is black with a cream stripe. Immature birds have dark gray upperparts, a cream bill, and a tail with a white tip. Its flight is slow and powerful. 17. Yellow-fronted barbet, Megalima flavifrons. The yellow-fronted barbet, Silopogon flavifrons, is an Asian barbet, which is an endemic resident breeder in Sri Lanka, where it inhabits subtropical and tropical moist forests, wetlands, plantations and rural gardens up to an altitude of 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet. It has green plumage with a yellow crown and blue patches below the eyes, on the throat and the chin. It is 21 to 22 centimeters, 8.3 to 8.7 in, long and weighs 57 to 60 grams, 2.0 to 2.1 ounces. It feeds on berries, fruits and occasionally insects. It nests in a tree hole, where it lays 2 to 3 eggs. 18. Crimson-fronted barbet, Megalima rubricapilis. The crimson-fronted barbet, Silopogon rubricapilis, also called Sri Lanka barbet, is an Asian barbet endemic to Sri Lanka where it inhabits tropical moist lowland forests up to 1,300 meters, 4,300 feet elevation. It has a mainly green plumage and wings, a blue band down the side of the head and neck, and a black crescent behind the eye. It is 15 centimeters, 5.9 inch, long with a short neck, large head and short tail. It forages for fruit and insects, and nests in tree holes, laying 2 to 4 eggs. 19. Sri Lanka blue magpie, Uricisa ornate. The Sri Lanka blue magpie or Ceylon magpie, Uricisa ornata, is a brightly colored member of the family Corvidae, found exclusively in Sri Lanka. This species is adapted to hunting in the dense canopy, where it is highly active and nimble. Its flight is rather weak though, and is rarely used to cover great distances. In spite of the Sri Lanka blue magpie's ability to adapt to the presence of humans, it is classified as vulnerable to extinction due to the fragmentation and destruction of its habitat of dense primary forest in the wet zone of southern Sri Lanka. 20. Sri Lanka crested drongo, Dicrurus lophorinus. The Sri Lanka drongo, Dicrurus lophorinus, or Ceylon crested drongo, is a species of bird in the family Dicruridae. It is endemic to Sri Lanka. It was previously considered a subspecies of the greater racket-tailed drongo. Its natural habitats are subtropical or tropical moist lowland and montane forests. 21. Sri Lanka brown-capped babbler, Pelarnium fuscocapilis. The brown-capped babbler, Pelarnium fuscocapilis, is a member of the family Pelarniidae. The brown-capped babbler is an endemic resident breeding bird in Sri Lanka. Its habitat is forest undergrowth and thick scrub. This species, like most babblers, is not migratory, and has short rounded wings and a weak flight. The brown-capped babbler is a smallish to medium-sized babbler, at 16 centimeters, 6.3 in, including its long tail. It is brown above and rich cinnamon below. It has a dark brown crown. Brown-capped babblers have short dark bills. Their food is mainly insects. They can be difficult to observe in the dense vegetation they prefer, but like other babblers, these are noisy birds, and their characteristic calls are often the best indication that these birds are present. 22. Sri Lanka scimitar babbler, Pomidorhinus melanoris. The Sri Lanka scimitar babbler or Ceylon scimitar babbler, Pomidorhinus melanoris, is an Old World babbler. It is endemic to the island of Sri Lanka, and was formerly treated as a subspecies of Indian scimitar babbler. The nominate form is found in the western part of wet hill regions of Sri Lanka, while race Holdsworthy is found in the dry lowlands and eastern hills. 23. Sri Lanka myna, Gracula telogenes. The Sri Lanka hill myna, Ceylon myna or Sri Lanka myna, Gracula telogenes, is a myna, a member of the starling family. This bird is endemic to Sri Lanka. This passerine is typically found in forest and cultivation. The Sri Lanka myna builds a nest in a hole. The normal clutch is 2 eggs. These 25 cm long birds have green glossed black plumage, purple tinged on the head and neck. There are large white wing patches, which are obvious in flight. The strong legs are bright yellow, and there are yellow wattles on the nape. The different shape and position of the wattles and the stouter orange-red bill distinguish this species from the southern hill myna, which also occurs in Sri Lankan forests. The sexes are similar in plumage, but can be distinguished by iris color, which is pale in females and dark in males. Juveniles have a duller bill and smaller wattles, and are less glossy overall. Like most starlings, the Sri Lanka myna is fairly omnivorous, eating fruit, nectar and insects. 24. Sri Lanka white-faced starling, Sturnus albifrontatus. The white-faced starling, Sternornis albifrontatus, is a member of the starling family of birds. It is an endemic resident breeder in Sri Lanka. It was for a long time erroneously known as S. senex. This was eventually identified as a junior synonym of the red-billed starling, Meese 1997. The adults of these 22 cm long birds have green-glossed dark gray upperparts and whitish underparts. The head is paler than the underparts. The sexes are similar, but juveniles are duller, with brown upperparts and grayer underparts. 25. Sri Lanka spot-winged thrush, Zoothera spiliptera. The spot-winged thrush, Geocyclus spiliptera, is an Asian thrush, a group within the large thrush family Turdidae. It is an endemic resident breeder in Sri Lanka. This uncommon species breeds in hill rainforests, and to a lesser extent in drier woodlands, at altitudes between 500 and 2000 m. The wintering areas are similar but include less well-wooded areas, and are generally at 750 to 1,500 meters altitude. The spot-winged thrush is generally solitary and can be quite secretive, especially in the dense undergrowth and bamboo clumps it favors. Spot-winged thrushes are omnivorous, but eat far more insects than fruit. They feed on the ground. Adults of this medium-sized thrush, which measures 21 to 27 centimeters, 8.3 to 10.6 in total length and weighs 70 grams, 2.5 ounces, are light brown above with a double wing bar of white spots. The pale face has 2 dark bars. The underparts are white with heavy spotting. The bill is black and legs are yellow. The song is a rich and varied whistling. Young birds have buff streaking on the upperparts, and the face and the underparts are light brown with heavy streaking. The loose cup nests are lined with vegetation and placed in a tree fork. 2 to 3 buff or bluish-green eggs are laid. This species raises 2 broods each year. 26. Sri Lanka scaly thrush, Zoothera imbricata. The Sri Lanka thrush or Sri Lanka scaly thrush, Zoothera imbricata, is a member of the thrush family Turdidae. This bird is a non-migratory resident breeder found in southwestern rainforests of the island of Sri Lanka. Zoothera imbricata was formerly treated as a race of the scaly thrush. It belongs in a group, possibly a superspecies, formed by that species and Z. lunulata, Z. haine, Z. machiki, Z. talasii, Z. margaritae etc., Z. imbricata being smaller, longer-billed and rufous below. 27. Sri Lanka white-throated flowerpecker, Dicium vincens. The Legs flowerpecker or white-throated flowerpecker, Dicium vincens, is a small passerine bird. It is an endemic resident breeder in Sri Lanka. It is named after the Australian ornithologist William Vincent Legge. The Legs flowerpecker is a common resident breeding bird of forests and other well-wooded habitats including gardens. 2 eggs are laid in a purse-like nest suspended from a tree. 28. Sri Lanka woodshrike, Tephrodornis affini. The Sri Lanka woodshrike, Tephrodornis affini, is a species of bird in the family Vangidae. It is found on Sri Lanka. It is sometimes considered a subspecies of the common woodshrike. Apart from these endemic species, you can see or photograph many other species such as monarch, drongo, minivots, flycatchers. And can see some fresh water fish species as well. Sinharaja is indeed a World Heritage and should protect it at any cost. Before I leave, I would like to request, if you haven't subscribed to the Prasad Hipuarachi Wild Media channel yet, please press that subscribe button and the notification bell as well, so that you will be notified whenever we come up with a new educational video of Sri Lanka's wilderness. Stay tuned with us. I am Prasad Hipuarachi.